All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. It is January 31st, last day of January. We got ourselves a Wednesday with a bunch of NBA games on today's slate that we'll dive into in today's video. Like we always do, when we go through each and every one of these games, I'll give you my lean on the spread. I'll give you my lean on the total. We'll talk about any other plays that I like player props within the game. But as always, all of my final plays, so what I'm rolling with, what counts towards the record, those plays will be in the pinned comment if you do want to fade those picks. Last night, if you faded the picks, which I know a lot of you guys do, you went 3-0 because I went 0-3. We picked two games that just got kind of bloody and ugly, like the Utah game as well as the Lakers game weren't games to invest in there. The good news is it's not a 3-unit loss of a day, it's a 2.5. We put half a unit on John Collins' ladder to score 15 plus. Started the game well, and I was like, all right, let's do this thing. He had 7 early in the second quarter and finished with 11. Tough spot there, but nonetheless, you know, we go 0-3 yesterday. Maybe we bounce back today, but let's go ahead and jump into the ride of the day because the news doesn't get any better. And I know we just dropped the womp womp, but me and Travis have to share this one. Ride of the day, Scotty Barnes over 23.5 points. Scotty Barnes finishes with, I think, 20, or it was a 13 or something like that, so not his best, and I only pull it up to confirm that, but I believe it was 13. Not Scotty Barnes's, most prolific night. Yeah, 37 minutes, 4 of 14 from the field, 0 of 3 from 3, 13 points. Tough. But Travis did give us a dub a couple nights back, so, you know, it is what it is. But, guys, if you don't know what the ride of the day is, all you have to use is hashtag ride of the day. I'm picking one person's play in the comments, jumping on board with you, and giving you a shout-out in the next video, win or loss. Also giving you a shout-out over on Twitter/X if you want to follow me there, at EvGuyBoston. But, yeah, we're picking one person, and then if you do win, we continue to ride with you. So Travis went to make it 2 in a row, and unfortunately came up short here. So we're looking for a new ride of the day today. So make sure to get that. You got to use the hashtag. Make sure to get those right of the days in the comments. But all right, enough blabbering here. Let's blabber some more. Let's talk about this NBA slate here. We're started off with a game in which I actually could see this potentially being a final play, which is weird because I don't really love the game, but I kind of like the spot for the Bulls here. So Charlotte, coming off of that loss against the Knicks, they've lost 4 straight games, whereas Chicago's been up and down. But this is going to be the easiest team that they've played in a while here. They beat Portland, so I guess it's going to be the easiest team that they've kind of, had another chance to beat, if that makes sense. So I don't really mind them minus the 4.5 points here. Now, you want to keep an eye on the injury report, just due to the fact that everyone in Charlotte is on the injury report right now. You might be thinking, well, why would that matter? Because if these guys get ruled out, that line is going to jump, and I really don't like the Bulls minus anything beyond 4.5 here. So keep an eye on the injury report. If you do like this pick, you can maybe get this in. I think LaMelo is doubtful. Miles Bridges is questionable. Kyle Lowry is out. And then obviously the same guys that have been out for a while here. So yeah, it could be a final play just because I love fading Charlotte as of late, to be completely honest. And just on the season, I mean, they've been a fairly fadeable team as well, especially when they are on the road here. Now, the Bulls are on the road, which they've been kind of like dicey on the road, but I just think that they are the better team here, and it's kind of a good spot for them. They've been playing rocky basketball, nothing better than playing against a team like Charlotte to be able to clean them up. A total is kind of where I went back and forth in this one because this line is super low. 217.5 seems kind of low, but it's like, what part of either of these teams is telling you that this should be an over game, right? The offenses have been super slow and inconsistent. Charlotte's defense has been terrible, so it makes you think, oh, the Bulls scored a lot of points. But the Bulls against bad defenses aren't really scoring that many points. 104 against Portland, right? They played against Toronto recently, who obviously can play at a slow pace and whatnot, but they've been beaten and bruised, especially post-trade. They only scored 107 against them. It's like, I don't know if I could trust the over, so I'll lean slightly towards the under in this one. But again, guys, it's not my favorite game, but for whatever reason, I do think that the Bulls cover this game by 5 points. In terms of player props, potentially looking at some unders for Miles Bridges, PJ Washington. I think that they have kind of inflated lines here. Miles Bridges under 39.5 points, rebounds, and assists. If LaMelo's a no-go, then yeah, that probably is a scary play. But if I like the under in this game, that's a lot of stat sheet stuffing for Miles Bridges to do, to get 40 PRAs in an under game. So we'll see. Keep an eye on the pinned comment for all of our final plays. All right, next up, we got Cleveland, a potentially healthy Cleveland taking on the Detroit Pistons here. Cleveland coming off of a nice win over the Clippers. They got a little bit more healthy, right? Mobley was a go, but now they should be getting Garland back. He's probable in this spot, and the dude has missed. Let's see if we have it up in our notes here. He's missed so many games in a row. I don't have the exact number, but he's been out for a while. Mobley comes back last game. Now Garland's back. This is going to be a healthy Cleveland team, and they're honestly coming back at a good time. Cleveland, in their last 10 games here, have won 9 of them, only losing to the Bucks, and they kind of got that win right back the next night or 2 nights later. They go and smoke Milwaukee by double digits. So shout out to them. They're playing good basketball. The defense looks pretty good. The only defensive lapse of a game really in their last 10 games or so was that game against the Bucks that they lost. Other than that, they're allowing 110 or less to damn near everybody. So I think this Cleveland team's about to make some sort of a push as long as Garland comes back and kind of flows into it, because there's only one basketball. Mitchell's been playing well. Now Mobley comes back. Jarrett Allen's been scoring the ball. So have some of those, secondary players as well, right? So is there some sort of rocky waters coming back with Garland? Potentially, but you're playing the Pistons tonight. Couldn't be a better situation for them to come back to. So I'll lean towards the Cavs here. Minus 12.5 is probably a little bit too much, in terms of being confident in making it a final play. So I might stick away from that, but I really don't mind the over in this spot. So like I said, Cleveland's defense has been electric, and it has. So I'm not really thinking that the Pistons are going to be able to go out there and score a bunch of points, but this is a Pistons team that their over has hit over 70% of games when they are on the road. And it kind of makes sense, right? It's just a very, very bad overall defense. I'd be bad overall team, but they've only played 1 road game in their last 10 games. So we've kind of seen the Pistons defense go like this, right, in terms of pace of play and everything like that. But now they're back on the road, and like I just said, when they are on the road, man, oh man, do we see a bunch of points scored in these games here. So when they're on the road here, I think they're allowing, I want to say on the season, over it's near 116 per game, and that's on the entire season. In their last 10 games or so, they're absolutely letting up a bunch. Last 10 road games. So I like the over in this spot, but again, does this turn into a blowout? Do those guys get a rest? Does Garland coming back sort of impact the flow of the Cavs? Potentially. It also impacts the player prop spots here. Like I like looking at I guess some of the Piston side of things, like Jalen Duren over 12.5 points. I don't mind that. He's hit it twice against the Cavs here in his last 2 games, one being this season. He's had the over in 58% of games this year, and it's like, well, who else is scoring, right? The dude's taking enough shots, and his shots are going to be high field goal percentage. He's taking near 10 shots per game and making, or he's shooting 66% from the field. So I like his over, but when you look at it from a Cavs perspective, it's like, kind of tough. Garland coming back, how much does that impact? Yada, yada, yada. So I'd probably stick away from Cavs props in this until we can feel out Garland. But yeah, my 2 probably favorite plays in this game would be Jalen Duren over in point, just because he's been cashing and he's shooting quality shots. He does have a tough matchup, so FYI, a little caveat there. And then as well as the over 229.5. But so far, the 2 games that we've talked about haven't been like I would say the money-making games in today's slate. There's a couple more spots in today's slate that I do think have a little bit of more of an edge. Speaking of edge, how would you like the edge over on Sleeper of getting Devin Booker for 0.5 points? Yeah, I think that's a little bit of an edge. His normal points line is 30.5. Make sure you guys go sign up for Sleeper. Use the link in the pinned comment. You get this Devin Booker square as a new user, as well as all of the football squares they're dropping, as well as 100% of your first deposit matched. Absolute no-brainer, up to $500. I know it sounds crazy to deposit $500 into an app, but it's even crazier that they will match it. You can deposit $25 if you want. You'll have a new account balance of $50. No matter what you deposit, they will double, and that is the awesome part, guys. It's a no-brainer. Go check out Sleeper. That link is in the pinned comment. And yeah, take advantage of this Booker square too as new users. Now let's go ahead and get back to the slate. All right, next up, we have Washington taking on the Clippers. I mean, you have to look at the Clippers in this spot, right? There's nothing that Washington has done other than the last 2 games, which we can go ahead and cut the BS there. They beat Detroit and they beat San Antonio. So don't give me the Washington's heating up thing, right? But there's nothing that they've done this year that would tell you that they truly would be able to keep up with the Clippers, who are playing good basketball. They had won 9 of their last 8 games, and they take a loss to Cleveland. But I just got kind of finished saying I think this Cleveland team's going to be underrated for the next month or so. So I don't really hold that too much against them. And there's no real injuries on either side here. So you have two healthy teams going up against one another. Actually, Zubac, I believe, is still out, but they've been without him for a little while now. So give me the Clippers here minus the points. Yes, they're on the road. They've been on the road here, a 50-50 cover team this year. So that kind of, I guess, goes against what we're looking at, 11-11 on the road. But the Warriors, one of the worst road team cover, one of the worst home team covering teams in the league this year. 33% of their games they've covered at home, which ain't all that great. 7 out of their 21 home games. So yeah, give me the Clippers in this spot. Now the total sitting at 236.5. It seems like it's a high number, but you know, this Wizards team just can't seem to stop a nosebleed, right? And again, you might use well, look at the last 2 games. They've actually played Detroit, San Antonio. Like, we can't really put much weight into that. Whereas the Clippers were dropping a bunch of points. Like, the Clippers scored 120 plus in, I believe it's 7 of their last 10 games, 125 plus in like 6 of their last 10 games. So even though this Clippers team doesn't play with a hell of a lot of pace, they're in the bottom like third of the league. Washington plays with a lot of pace. So if Washington even ups the pace a little bit, I think Wizards score on them like cheese and, you know, knife going through hot butter. So, or hot knife going through butter, whatever the saying is. So give me the over in this spot as well. I like the Clippers probably a little bit more than I do the over. And then a player prop I like is taking a peek at Tyus Jones under 23.5 points, rebounds, and assists. This is a Clippers team that plays decent defense against the point guard position. Now you're probably like, how is that even possible with James Harden at the point guard position? But it just is what it is. It's very good team defense. That starting 5 plays really, really good defense overall. I believe Terrence Mann getting the start here over Powell. But nonetheless, still, I think that this is a Clippers team that's been locking up point guards as of late. And Tyus Jones isn't going to try and do too much in a game in which he doesn't have the greatest matchup, right? So looking at his under in a line that he's only hit a few times this season, I really don't mind that spot. I also don't mind looking at Kawhi's over rebounds and assists. It's sitting at 9.5 or 10.5 right now. We've been playing it at 9.5, and it's been cashing a decent amount at 9.5, but now it's 10.5. Kind of unfortunate, but if you look at this Washington team, like, they allow a lot of everything, and Kawhi's going to be the guy that kind of gets involved with the assist and the rebounds, kind of off the scoring score sheet, right? So, yeah, those are 2 leans that I have in terms of player props in this spot. All right, next up, we have Miami taking on the Kings. Now, this one kind of threw me for a loop because Miami, I would have assumed, would be underdogs in this spot. They've lost 7 straight games here, haven't covered in any of those games either. Sacramento has won 4 straight games, covered in 2 of them, pushed in 1 and lost in the other. So trend-wise, this is a Sacramento team that's playing much better. They have been on the road. Now, they haven't been as far east as Miami on this road trip, but then they do have Indiana, Chicago, Cleveland coming up after this. So I believe it's like 7 road games in a row for them, which, yeah, that gets daunting. They're in the middle of it right now. Maybe that's the issue. But them being underdogs here, I think I lean towards Sacramento, unless this smells a little bit like a trap, but they've been playing better basketball. This Miami team I just haven't been able to fully trust. And here they are sitting as favorites in Miami. Now, I guess you could say, well, this is a Sacramento team that has struggled on the road this season, right? But they've covered on the road plenty. They haven't really won as many games they'd probably like on the road, but they've covered on the road here. They're 14-8-1. They're just above 500 when it comes to record on the road straight up, but they've covered in more games than they've even won on the road. So, yeah, give me Sacramento in this spot. The total sitting at 230.5. I have a feeling the Heat are going to do everything in their power to slow this game down, so I'll lean slightly towards the under for a total, but a couple player props that I like in this spot. First off, I'm going to be looking at Keegan Murray here, over 14.5 points, and you're probably like, what the hell, dude? He has been pretty bad as of late. He has hit this number in 51% of games this year, so more than half, right? In his last 10, or even look at his last 4, he's only hit it once, and he had 15 there, but I like the matchup that he has here today. So he's obviously going to get probably either the Highsmith or most likely the Highsmith, because I doubt that they're going to use Jimmy Butler on him all that much. So he's going to get the Highsmith matchup, which I like that spot for him. And even if he does end up being just sort of a stand in the corner and shoot type of guy, that is a way that you can attack this Miami defense. Left corner threes are really weak in. Right corner threes, they're, just slightly below average in terms of defensive. But in the paint, which is where Keegan Murray, obviously, in his last 10 games here, likes to score. He's leading the team in terms of field goal percentage in the paint in his last 10. I like the spot for him to be able to get in the paint, maybe those little pull-ups that he does. And again, again, only asked for 15 from him. Isn't that crazy? And I like the matchup. I also don't mind De'Aaron Fox. The problem with betting De'Aaron Fox, as you guys probably know here, is that you're just going to get inflated lines, which maybe they're not even inflated. I probably shouldn't even say that, but you're going to get lines that just seem very high. Now, his line is at 25.5. It's been at 26, 27.5 this season. Still seems like a high line for me, because if he goes and drops 24, 6, and whatever, it's like, oh, that's actually a really good game from Fox. But asking for 26 points as a minimum, a little bit scary, but it's something that I considered. I like that matchup as well, going up against Rozier or Hero. And even if they put Jimmy Butler on him, I think De'Aaron Fox is way faster than Butler. So yeah, those are two guys that I like their points over. Probably won't roll with both of them. We'll probably do some more digging to see which one we want to roll with, because when you think about it, we're leaning towards the under in this game. It doesn't really correlate to have two guys overs, but we shall see. Keep an eye on that pinned comment, and hit that subscribe button, and hit that like button as well. All right, we got the Rockets taking on the Pelicans here. Rockets sitting at home as 2.5-point dogs. Pelicans coming off of a game that really slipped out of their hands against the Celtics, and they've lost 6 of their last 10 games here. They've lost 3 straight, but they have had a tough schedule here. They go and play in their last 5 games here, right? Phoenix, Utah, OKC, Milwaukee, and Boston. And they're still on the road here. They do have one more road game, then they return home. That'll be against San Antonio, so it's nothing to look forward to in terms of impacting them in this spot. But you have a Rockets team that's now at home. This Rockets team at home, we've said it all year long, right? A way better cover team when they are at home. They cover 66% of their games at home this season. New Orleans also been covering on the road, but, clearly showing some discomfort on this road trip. But to give them credit, they're 12-9-1 against the spread on the road this year. I just don't really totally want to get behind this New Orleans team right now. I'll take the Rockets and the points. Is it my favorite spot? Not necessarily. My favorite play in this game is probably going to be taking a peek at Brandon Ingram over 21.5 points. There's a Rockets, this Rockets defense is good. They've been good. Probably the one spot that we could say that they struggle in is defending the mid-range, and Brandon Ingram's middle name might as well be mid-range, right? So I don't necessarily hate his spot there whatsoever in terms of getting his points. It doesn't really like jump off the page in terms of hit rate. This is a guy that has hit over 21.5 and 51% of games this year. But last time he played the Rockets, he finished at 19, so made it kind of close. He did have 31 against them earlier on in the season, but he's only hit this in 3 of his last 10 games. He's been coming up shy. He's not shooting the ball enough either, but his last 2 games, 18 and 24 shot attempts. So kind of hoping that maybe he's starting to shoot the ball more, and this should be a good spot for him. So like I said, it doesn't jump off the page when you look at it from a trend perspective. It jumps off the page when you look at it from a spot perspective. Houston struggles against mid-range. Like I said, Brandon Ingram should have mid-range tattooed on his forehead. It just kind of is the perfect matchup, I guess, for him. So I'll go ahead and lean towards him over 21.5. Again, it's my favorite spot in this game. In terms of a total, this Rockets defense obviously plays really good defense at home. At home this season, they're I think it's like under 110 in terms of points allowed. Their last 3 games, they have been allowing more points, more like league average. I'll still lean towards the under here. You have 2 teams that have cashed more unders than they have overs this season, so I'll lean towards that. But again, I want to make it clear. If you look down in the final plays, it's probably going to be Brandon Ingram or bust, if in terms of this game. Comment Brandon Ingram in the comments if you guys suffered that. I feel like that's the comment of the day now, right? We'll just wait. As long as the video is long enough, we'll wait for Ev to just not be able to speak, and then we can comment that. Yesterday I said today a bunch of times. Go ahead and comment. Just comment Ingram. Make it easier in the comments. I love that, because that's just a way that I could see how many people actually saw me be an absolute lunatic. But all right, let's move on here. We have the Minnesota Timberwolves hosting the Dallas Mavericks here. Minnesota, huge favorites in this game. Now, obviously, they're the better team to begin with, and then you take a peek at the injury report, and it's like, oh, looks like Kyrie's going to be out. Doncic is going to be out. Derek Jones is questionable. Derek Lively is out as well. So Dallas is really playing with, not the best of teams. It's going to be Tim Hardaway Jr. and company, right? So I'll take Minnesota in this one. Don't think it makes its way into the final plays, because regardless of who you're playing and all that, like even when good teams play these Pistons or Charlottes, right? Like I'm reluctant to lay that big number. So this is kind of a similar spot. So I'm reluctant to lay that number. Probably end up sticking away from it. What I don't necessarily mind is the under. If no Luka, no Kyrie on Dallas' side of things, and Minnesota's going to have that oppressive defense, I don't mind this game being a low-scoring game. game, right? Last time they played, which was the beginning of this month, when it was a more healthy Dallas team as well, that game finished 115 to 108, so it already was a low scoring game, relatively speaking. That would obviously go over this number, but we're missing a couple key scorers. Earlier in the year, they played in December twice, 119 to 101, 118 to 110, like low scoring games for Dallas games overall. Now you're going to strip out their scorers. Give me the under in this spot. From a player prop perspective, it's always tough, and you guys could probably agree if you've been betting for a while too, when guys are ruled out on one side, how does it impact the other side? Because now I'm definitely not going to like do the easy chalk, give me Hardaway over in points, because that seems like it's going to be too inflated of a stat and everything like that. So you look at the Minnesota side, and it's like, well, what if this game becomes a blowout? What if they don't really play all that much, right? So maybe you could look at some first quarter stats, but nonetheless, I think the only one that I even kind of came across was, and it's just because it's a high number, right? Don't get me wrong. This guy's a stud. I love this guy as a player, but I don't mind looking at Anthony Edwards under 8.5 first quarter points. 9 points in a first quarter is asking a lot. The dude has failed to do that in plenty of games this season. It's kind of the only spot that I came across just because that line is so high. Even Karl-Anthony Towns' line is 5.5, and he's hit that under in five. I think it's 5 of his last 7 or 5 of his last 6. But 2 threes solves that. You know what I mean? Like Anthony Edwards, yes, he's going to shoot more quantity, but 9 points is still asking for a lot. That's a dude that's going to be on pace for 36 points in the game. So that's kind of why I arrived at that. But like I said, kind of a weird sort of shifty player prop scenario here with those guys being out on the other side. All right, we got the Spurs taking on the Magic. This is a weird one. I'll sound the psycho alert alarm. I just can't fully put my trust in this Magic team. I know it's weird. Like, this should be a spot where it's like, oh, yeah, the Magic over the Spurs. Oh, yeah, easy. But I just really haven't been totally impressed with the Magic here. So whether or not this becomes a final play, we'll see. But I think I'm leaning the Spurs plus the 4 points. The total sitting at 228. That is a number that I think is a little bit too low because of the lack of defense on the Spurs side of things. So slight lean towards the over. But I think my favorite play in this spot is actually going to be looking at Victor Wembanyama in terms of getting a double-double here. So this is a guy that's done this, and I think it's 4 straight games. 7 of his last 10, yeah, in 4 straight games. And yes, the Magic prevent rebounds fairly well to the center position on the season, but he's gotten 10 rebounds against some decent big teams, including Minnesota a couple games back. So it's a little bit of a flyer here, but his minutes restriction has just, lifted, and he's playing more and more minutes. The dude's 7 foot a million, right? Like, he's going to get some boards. So, yeah, I like Victor Wembanyama in this spot. His points line is getting a little bit too high for me. So, yeah, maybe we consider points plus rebounds. I think he's getting a decent amount of rebounds, but even that line is 35.5 right now, right? So it's like, what are we doing here? So the double-double kind of, if you were to hit 35.5 rebounds plus assists, good chance he gets 10 rebounds in there. He's going to get 10 points. We knock on wood, he should. So for him to go and get 10 rebounds, I like the chances of 10 versus, 35.5 points plus rebounds, if that's making sense. He can get 10 and 10. So kind of how I arrived at that with this loopy brain. But I'll go ahead and lean towards that. Yes, double-double for Victor Wembanyama from a player prop perspective. All right, Thunder taking on the Nuggets. Now, a lot of guys, so no player prop action so far in this game because a lot of guys are on the injured report. Jokic is questionable. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's questionable. Chet Holmgren's questionable. Dort is questionable. Jalen Williams is out. Isaiah Joe out as well. So that makes it a little bit more difficult to judge this game. If we assume that Dort, Holmgren, and Shai are playing as well as Jokic, I think I'm still going to... Now, it's going to be tough to take this spot because Denver is obviously a good team, but we've been fading Denver on the road, right? And they're 8-16-1 against the spread on the road. That is equivalent to just covering 33% of their games. I'm going to lean towards the Thunder, but those injuries, you're going to want to wait it out, obviously. So I'll lean Thunder at home. They're one of the best home teams in terms of covering. They've covered nearly 70% of home games this year against good teams, bad teams, in between, all of that. So, yeah, but obviously if Shai's out and Chet's out, it's like, well, okay, we're not gonna bet the Thunder without Shai, right? So keep an eye on the injury report. Same thing for the total. Like this one, I like the under if guys are out. If guys are in, I probably stick away from it. I think the Nuggets are gonna do everything in their power to slow this game down. So I'm not really thinking about the over, but I really don't know if I pull the trigger on the under unless one, we could do some more research on it throughout the day. Keep an eye on the pinned comment. But one, if everyone's ruled out, then yeah, I don't mind the under in this spot. But Jokic playing is a huge part of that under to me because he's a guy that can slow down the game. So it all comes down to the injury report, but I guess to put it in layman's terms, easy put, right? I like the under in this spot. And like I said, no player props as of right now, as everyone seems to be questionable in this spot. All right, Brooklyn taking on the Suns. Now, this one, I think a lot of people are going to jump to Phoenix right away because this Phoenix team has won plenty of games. They've won 8 of their last 10 games. I've kind of lost my trust in them, so I almost by default want to lean towards Brooklyn, but it's a want to lean towards Brooklyn, right? I still think that, data-wise and just looking at this, I have to lean towards Phoenix, and I am going to try to put this big old gut to the side for a second and say, all right, Phoenix should be the better team. They should be able to go out there and win this game by 3. So I am going to lean towards Phoenix, but I wanted to lean Brooklyn. Like, I started researching this game almost to try and get a feel for the Brooklyn side of things. Just wasn't totally able to get there. And Phoenix, they are still going to be on a road trip after this game, but they have a couple days off. Brooklyn, same thing, but they have Philly coming up. Like, they could be thinking about that Eastern Conference, whatever it is. Like, there's just no real spot where I was like, yeah, Brooklyn all the way. So I'll lean Phoenix minus the points. It kind of pains me to do so because they've let us down recently a few times. And then in terms of the total, 234.5. Another one where I kind of went back and forth on. Both these teams have been playing at I guess you could say, relatively slow scoring output. The Phoenix Suns have been playing at a high pace, which is obviously based on 100 possessions, and Brooklyn's been playing slowly. So that's where I'll give Brooklyn a little bit of edge. Maybe they slow this game down at home and we lean towards the under ever so slightly. Player prop that I like in this spot is going to be Nick Claxton. His under 28.5 points, rebounds, and assists. He's only hit the over in 9 games this season, so he's hit the under in 75% of games. And he's going up against Yusuf Nurkic, who is a big brute down there. Yes, he can get out athleticized, if that's a word, by Nick Claxton, but he's definitely won the strength battle here, and I do think that this could be a spot in which Nick Claxton struggles to put up a big rebound number, which is what I think he would need to hit this over. They played back in mid-December here. He played 34 minutes here and only had 22 points, rebounds, and assists. So I don't mind Nick Claxton's under PRA in today's game. All right, Portland taking on Milwaukee. This isn't even worth a psycho alert alarm, but I'll lean Portland because Milwaukee has been such a bad cover team, right? So, like, that's really what it comes down to. Do I actually put my hard-earned bread on Portland? No. And we went 0-3 last night. Like, I don't think that this is the best spot for Portland overall, but this Milwaukee team just isn't good against the spread. On the road this season, they've covered just 38% of games. Not saying Portland's been any better. They only have covered 47% of games at home, but it's a big number, and I can't trust Milwaukee with that. So I lean towards Portland. Does that become a final play? Like I said, most likely not. Total sitting at 237.5. Off the rip, that was a high number, but then it's like, well, it's still Portland, and it's still a fast-paced Milwaukee. No matter who wins or who stays in this game or X, Y, and Z, I think you look at the over in this spot. So obviously not the best game on the slate, but I'll lean towards the over here. And then in terms of player props, I mean, Brook Lopez maybe because they have no interior defense. I don't really think that, there's anything to tip your nose at when it comes to the Portland defense on the inside. The 5th most points in the last 7 games. I think it's the 8th most rebounds. Then from an assist perspective, they're top half in the league as well in terms of allowing. So it's like, all right, I mean, that's probably what I look at. Brook Lopez, and he's been killing it as of late. But player props kind of got a little dicey when I was looking into it here. Like, nothing jumped off the page for me, but that Brook Lopez, his hit rate recently, as well as the matchup, can't really turn a blind eye to it. So, guys, it's going to do it for today's show. Hopefully we do bounce back. It always sucks getting on here after going 0-3, but I told you guys all the time, and I tell you guys all the time, it's like we can go 0-1,000,000 in our bets, and there's still a huge part of me that the passion, yes, I love sports betting, no kidding. The passion is coming on here and making a video and interacting with the community and everything like that. So we can go 0-1,000,000 our next 1,000,000 bets. We'll show up. Maybe people hate us. Maybe we get a lot of hate. Like, who knows? All the guppies out there, they seem to show up when we're losing. But nonetheless, still going to be the case. Like, you're not getting rid of me, right? So it is what it is. You'll have losing nights when you sports bet. I think we're up, 6 units in January. We'll recap it tomorrow because it'll be the first day of February. And we're up like 22 units on the season or something like that. 19 units after last night. So I'm not worried about our long-term success here. But yeah, just wanted to kind of cap off the video with that. So appreciate everyone tuning in. We'll catch you guys in the next one, all right? Peace out.